Hello, everybody. Once again, I am Lehman Crafton, aka Zorvalachan, Less Than Guru. You can see the tail end of Mars here. He had already been up in me while I was trying to do the video a lot, and he's calmed down, but he still wants to participate. So today we are continuing Torg Eternity reviews, and we're going to talk about Aysle, the high fantasy realm. And I love high fantasy. If you've seen other videos of mine, you know that I love high fantasy. You also, if you watched my Aysle for the original Torg review, you'll know that what parts I didn't like were mainly focused on the High Lord Uthorian and how they made him a bumbling fool, in my opinion. They took somebody who was very powerful, and he expanded out of his being a Gauntman lieutenant to his own realm, and he conquered realms after that. He met the Cyber Pope before, when he was still the False Pope, and they took over realms together and learned from each other and expanded their knowledge of the Cosmverse and helped each other. That's all gone in Torg Eternity. So in Torg Eternity, the Uthorian, the High Lord of Aysle, is a complete Gauntman lackey. Complete. Without doubt, without question, he is, in my opinion, even worse than he was in Torg Eternity. He did the body swap, which, if you watch that, I don't really understand, and it's not happening in my Cosmverse, but he did that again. He has not even taken over his home realm. He has not invaded any other realms by himself. As soon as he learns deep and dark secrets that he could use to his own advantage, he tells them to the Gauntman. They redid Baraka very, very well. But maybe it's because I like Uthorian a lot, and if I didn't, I'd be like, here's a weak little High Lord, so who's basically, the Gauntman's lackey, that the Gauntman does everything for him to put him in this position so that he knows that Uthorian will be absolutely no threat, and he can take all the possibility energy of Earth. That makes sense, but I just like high fantasy so much. I wish the High Lord was competent. You look at his stats, and he is, but you read the lore and all the stuff that he's done or didn't do, and he's not. He is a loyal Gauntman servant that even shocks the Gauntman. The Gauntman seems to be even pushing him to be disloyal, to push him to see when his breaking point is. And Uthorian apparently doesn't have a breaking point. It's just always like, I'm going to do whatever the Gauntman tells me. So that's my little rant. I'll stop here with that, but that's what I feel. I won't say disappointed, because again, if you look at it as Gauntman's really smart and has spent millennia figuring out how to invade core Earth and get the possibility energy, it makes perfect sense. But if you look at me as a fanboy of high fantasy and wanting Uthorian to be a powerful High Lord, then there's that type of disappointment. But I can't fault Ulysses Spiel North America for making that happen, because again, overall it makes sense. But it is sad to see Baraka get love and Uthorian actually get less love. So that's my rant. Now let's talk about Aysle's high fantasy. So you have all the high fantasy tropes of D&D, adventures underground into dungeons, all magic items like potions of healing and bags that you can put more stuff into it than it seems, or quivers that refill as you shoot, the arrow goes back, or the knife sheath and it pops back into the sheath, whatever. All that type of stuff is in there. They have a really cool method of base magic items and then higher types of magic items, like arcane magic items, are a little more powerful, and then even artifacts. When you get into the artifacts, it's kind of like the intelligent items of old school D&D, where they can argue with you and they get really jealous of other ones, so you can only have one, because otherwise they both are like pouting because you have two, and they want it, they're jealous and they only want you to use them and things like that. So that's really cool. They have a neat world law that I'll go into where you can actually get magic items, or you can use your own magic more powerfully, and things like that. So when we look at the meat and potatoes, what happens, what information, resources do we have in Torg Eternity with Aysle that are books and information things, not just tokens and stuff, which they have in all the waves, but what type of resources? So you have the main book, Aysle, and here we have Uthorian on the front, getting ready to smack a tank with a big axe. We have the 7-act adventure that takes place in Aysle, Revenge of the Caradon. Personally, I haven't played or game mastered this. My own group is, as I've said before, is not with the Delphi Council. It doesn't exist in my Cosmverse. I have the Circle of Knights, which instead of a big overall organization who gives missions, they're loosely allied Storm Knight groups who share information and stuff like that. And one of them might be, hey, there's some hot spots in France and in England. If you feel like exploring those, we'll give you the information of where it begins. If my group says yes, which they, when I gave them that choice, they could go to France, they could go to England, or they could tell me where they wanted to go. They chose to go to France, which put them on the unhallowed cyber papacy mega adventure, which I'll talk about tomorrow. But they, if they would have chose England, then they would be going on this adventure. They didn't. I have read through this adventure. I think it is a nice adventure. I'll easily be able to adapt it to my own campaign, Cosmverse, but that's the one for them. They have their own Game Master shield. Like I said, all the realms have the Game Master shields. Facing the players are usually the axioms and the world laws that have mechanical effects. And then on the other side, you have nice tables and charts. This has your random item, magic item, loot table. So that's always nice, just like in old school or even new school D&D, the magic items that might pop up. And then I didn't show it before, but each of the realities comes with its own Delphi missions. This one's for Aysle, of course, as you can see. And basically, this is a bunch of kind of shorter one-act adventures that you could have in a session. You can easily put it between acts or between adventures. Each one's written by a different author, so you get a wide range of realities or wide range of settings and different variations of that realm. So that's all interesting. So let's go ahead and let's talk about the axioms. And just again, I'm going to look at the handy dandy GM screen so I can say the right thing. So we have magic of 24, which is really high magic. And it's a little different than the original Torg. So if you watch my original Torg, each person is born under a certain astrological sign, and then that gives you a magic skill and a magic knowledge that then if you want to, it's easier to learn and cast spells from that type of thing. You don't start with any unless you want to put possibilities into it, experience into it, but it's there. Now with Aysle, they do it differently. What they have is they have a list of cantrips, very minor magic spells that anybody who's in Aysle that knows how to, one of the magic skills can cast those that are associated with it. So if you know alteration, you can cast all these alteration cantrips. If you know divination, you can cast all the divination cantrips, etc. When you go outside of Aysle, you need a perk to do that. But any magic user inside of Aysle, if you're a cyber witch or white witch from cyber papacy, or a core earth type magician, any magicians who go into Aysle all of a sudden get those cantrips based off if they have the magic skill or not. The perk, there is a perk, an Eilish perk. You can take those cantrips with you. So if you go into other realms, you can do that. I had a player that made a character that was based off of the Elven Warden archetype. So shooting arrows and stuff without the wolf on that one, on that group. But instead of the wolf, he chose the cantrips, and he had some magic skills. So he didn't know any other spells. He did not have any other spell. He just knew magic skills and cantrips, but he used those cantrips a lot. It gave him a whole slate of minor spells that he could cast in other realms as well as Aysle. So that's always kind of a neat thing. Social is 16. That's a medieval type social structure. So you have lords and you have houses, and if you wanted to, you could go Game of Thrones, or if you wanted to have it more Middle Ages, where you have kings and dukes and barons, and down the line, it's that type of feudal scenario. Then Spirit of 18, they go really in depth on the deities of Aysle, deities of honor and darkness and balance. They do a nice job of saying what their philosophies are. They have a nice job of saying how they view each other, how they viewed the guilt of the elves, which is another thing that all I'll say about that, so I don't ruin it if it's hidden in your game, is that the guilt of the elves is another thing that, with the whole Uthorian, he's a complete lackey of the Gauntman. Instead of using knowledge to benefit himself, he immediately ran to the Gauntman and told the Gauntman, and then the Gauntman took that knowledge for himself. So again, overall, very good for the Gauntman and the lore and why how the Gauntman is setting up the invasion, but really sucks for Uthorian, making him just a complete lackey that has no spine whatsoever. But I already ranted about that. But I did want to say that that was part of the spirit. The deities, each how they viewed that, what the elves did, why they are feeling guilt. And then Tech of 14, which is up to not completely primitive firearms, so it's not like you have the wick and you light and you hope. It's wheel lock mechanisms, so those are allowed. So right into the Middle Ages type tech. Then we have our world laws. So we have the two that have mechanical effects, the law of magic and the law of enchantment. The law of magic, basically, you can, and in the books, it's hard to say, do you take shock, do you spend shock? Because it's not like hit points which drop down. It's like I'm fine, and then all of a sudden I'm getting hit, and I take shock, and I go up. So it's taking it, but it sounds kind of weird. Or you say you spend it, well then that would be getting rid of it, not taking it. So whatever that thing is you're normal, and all of a sudden you're taking damage, you're getting hit, you're being damaged. So understand that whenever I either say spend shock or take shock, I mean you are getting worse, you are getting more beat up. So you can beat yourself up magically. So for every add you have in a magic skill, you can beat yourself up and take shock up to that number. So you can do it less than that number, but you can take it up to that number and give yourself a bonus that is added to your total, not your roll total, but your over your end total. So once you generate that bonus number and you add it to your skill and you add or subtract any bonuses or penalties, then you can add however many points of shock you did to yourself. So if you have a 3, you could do 1, 2, or 3 shock to yourself, hurt yourself magically, and you would gain a 1, 2, or 3 based off of that shock, the same as the shock that you did to yourself, as a bonus. So that's really neat and helps magic, and it's for anybody in the realm. Again, Torg Eternity, you don't carry your reality with you. You're connected to your reality, but you don't carry it like in original Torg. You are only going through the laws of where you are, not from where you came from. But so any mage, magic user, wizard, whatever you want to call them, anybody with magic spells, magic skills can use those, hurt themselves to boost up their magic abilities. The other one is the law of enchantment, which I really like, is if you do your rolls, and we're talking about rolls here, not totals, but roll totals, off the d20, any explosions, any ups, any possibilities, heroes, drama cards, all that. When you calculate everything together, if you have a combined roll total of 60 or better, one of your items you have becomes enchanted. It becomes magical. It's really cool if you can figure out with the player what item did, and normally what it was associated with the skill. So if you're picking a lock, maybe it's your lock pick. If you're swinging a sword, it obviously could be your sword. Certain things you might have to come up with a little way that they might work, but one of your items becomes magical, which is really cool. It's a fun way to get a magic item, and then it's tied in with that. It's tied in with that adventure, and it's something that you hold more dear than if you just find it on the ground. Um, Again, personal experience. In the very few times that I've actually been able to play Torg Eternity through Torganized Play, so I'm plugging Torganized Play again. I am an Ednos, as I've talked before, and one of the things my Ednos is really good with is stealth. So I was trying to get. We were doing a mission for the Delphi Council because they use the Delphi Council, which is fine. I'll play any Torg under any person, and I will change my. I don't have to play in my own world. I can play in whoever's world. So just to get that straight. So we're sent on a mission that the Delphi Council gave us, and we were trying to sneak around this camp of Vikings, or even maybe into it. And I was the most stealthy of all the characters, and I was trying to give signals, and I basically had a really big penalty because I was trying to sneak a whole group into that. And I rolled, and with the resources I spent, I hit the 60. So one of my items was enchanted. Now, you could just randomly roll a random magic item, and it could have been whatever. But me and the Game Master were like, we need, it would be nice if it had to do with stealth. So one of the things my character had from the Living Land was like this algae that you could put on, and it camouflaged you even more. So since I had that, and I had used that, we basically, the Game Master is like, you have this gourd that's hollow, and that's where you keep your algae in, and if you use it, it'll refill with that algae, and it'll give you that bonus to your stealth. So it wasn't something that I would use once or twice and it would go away. It would refill, and it would give me a little higher bonus once per act. So that's cool. It fits. Now my character has a magic item, and my magic of being an Edenos is a 1, I believe. So that's horrible, and I'm going to disconnect anytime I use it and roll a 1. But it fits really well with the magic was based off of stealth. The roll was based off of stealth. That gourd filled up with magic energy. Really cool. Now I have that story. I'll remember that so much more than if I just had found it, and I would have probably given it to somebody because I wouldn't want to use it. But now this is my magic item. It helps me with stealth. It's just really cool. It has a story. So those types of things are done with it. Now, I haven't talked about that each realm has its own possibility energies. I'll talk about that in the setting, but I do want to mention the Aysle possibility allows that if you spent your Aysle possibility instead of a normal possibility and get that roll, then you can choose what the magic item is, or it can be an item that is not within the axiom levels of Aysle. So normally the law of enchantment, when you roll that 60 or higher on your total d20 rolls and explosions, etc., it can only be something that is within the axioms of Aysle. So you couldn't make a plasma sword from the cyber papacy become magical, or even say combat boots of core earth soldier become magical, because that's above the tech of Aysle. The Aysle possibility allows it to apply to anything. So a lot of times people will, if they have Aysle possibilities, they will use those, because then they can choose that plasma sword, those combat boots for stealth, or whatever. So it's a nice thing that gives a little more player agency into figuring out what it is. It opens up any item that they have has a possibility of becoming magical. So that is cool. The other one is the law of light and dark. That's what allows light perks, dark perks, and cosm cards. Like I said, they usually have 2 that have mechanics and a 3rd that is used with the cosm cards and certain perks and stuff. And that's how those laws work. I usually haven't been talking about minor laws. I probably should have with Nile Empire. Has a minor law of masks. I'll go ahead and say that if you're in the Nile Empire and you wear your little mask, it can act as armor. It doesn't work if you're outside of Aysle. Well, I wanted to say Aysle, so that was Nile Empire. This is Aysle. Aysle has the Law of Legends. I did want to talk about the Law of Legends because I think people take the Law of Legends and try to apply it everywhere. They try to make all the myths and all the legends of Core Earth suddenly pop up no matter what reality invades. And that's why if I would ever make my own Cosmverse, different one from the one that I use now, I would have different realities hit different places. So instead of cyber papacy hitting France and then South America, I might have it hit Asia. Instead of Nile Empire hitting Egypt, I might have it hit North America. I would hit different places so that it would be perfectly understandable that the realities that come in supplant and push out core Earth reality on anything that's not a mixed zone. So it's not Earth's legends and myths coming up. Just because Pan-Pacific came into Asia doesn't mean we need mech and kaiju. That's anime core Earth stereotype, not a Pan-Pacific, trope that comes in. Aysle does have the Law of Legends, which does state that all of a sudden you can have quests that are associated with those legends. So you can't have a King Arthur quest type thing that appears. I just think that people tend to look at certain things like that and bring it back, or even something like Aurosh. Aurosh had a Earth-like Gaia that got invaded, and some nightmares and monsters and stuff from that can come over, and they can look like our own myths and legends, but they're actually their Earth myth and legends, and that also blurs that line. So I do want to say, if you want to do the whole all myths and legends come up, great, but that's not how even officially it's really supposed to be. It's supposed to be the invading reality comes in. If you want to make your Cosmverse different, fine. I'm just trying to tell you why I view my Cosmverse differently and how official Torg takes their Cosmverse differently. It's not Earth's legends coming to life. That is riffs, basically. But that's how the world laws act. So what I've talked about Uthorian and how I don't like how that happened, but I understand why it happened. So there are some times where I don't like something, but I understand why it is. I can change it in my own Cosmverse, but I don't necessarily want it to be changed officially because I understand why it was officially, even though I don't like it. World laws, axioms, law of enchantment, which I think is cool. Law of magic, which is nice, but it only applies to magic users. So if your group doesn't have a magic user, they don't get it. But the enemies could have a magic user that does it, so you can throw that against your Storm Knight group. So that could be interesting and fun. So I guess that's pretty much what I have for today for Aysle. Tomorrow we will be doing Cyber Papacy. Again, I thank you for watching these videos. I hope that you learned something, or you figured out something, or you decided that whatever I said was a bunch of BS and you're going to do the opposite. At least I made you have a decision about something. So if you like the video, you can hit like. If you dislike, you can hit the dislike if you want to see more of these. And if you just want to help the channel, again, I never think that I will get to a place where I'm getting monetized or anything like that. But it is nice to see my subscribers go up and to see my views go up. That makes me happy. That actually there are a few people out there that are watching this, at least for a few minutes. So I do appreciate you watching these. I will continue to not just have reviews. I will have recorded playthroughs, possibly tutorials, especially since Roll20 has changed a bunch of things. So some of those I might need to redo, and other reviews of other systems. As Torg Eternity and my involvement with Torg Eternity, once things are released and I'm not under NDAs, I might start talking also, just having random reviews or tidbits of Torg Eternity knowledge, or the way that I'm doing things, or why I do things the way that I do, etc. I might have little videos of those. So I'm not just going to do reviews. I'm not just going to do playthroughs. I'm going to do a bunch of other stuff. And as you know, I have no production values whatsoever. Even when I try to make funny background or neat backgrounds, then I can't show books and stuff like that. Mars is always in my videos, so maybe I'll change it to Zor Valachan, Less Than Guru, and Mars, or something like that. So other than that, I wish you a good day, and I will catch you later.